All right, so get ready because we're diving deep into traditional Chinese medicine today.
Ah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and we're going to be looking at how this ancient system maps the body's energy.
I love it.
Yeah, and we're going to be using a chapter from the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine.
Now, that text has been like the foundation of TCM for centuries, you
It's
know?
incredible, right? And it still has insights that are so relevant for us
Mm.
today, all these years later.
Absolutely.
And today, we're really going to be zeroing in on qi,
Yeah.
that vital energy that flows throughout the body, as folks have been following along know.
Right.
What I find really interesting is how this ancient text, it actually provides this detailed roadmap for qi,
It's
a
amazing.
map that practitioners have been using for generations.
For generations, yeah.
So I guess the question is, what does this map actually look like? Is it like a literal map, or is it more of a conceptual thing?
It's kind of both, actually. You know, you can imagine it as this network of pathways, like crisscrossing the body, and they're connecting all these different organs and systems, right? And these
Yeah.
pathways are called meridians. And like specific points along these meridians are like super important for understanding and influencing the flow of qi.
Okay, so I'm picturing like a network of rivers and streams,
Yeah,
but instead of water, it's energy flowing through them.
exactly. That's a good way to think about it.
So just how detailed is this map? Are we talking like a rough sketch, or is it super precise?
Oh, no, it gets really precise.
Okay.
The text, it actually outlines like 365 points along these meridians.
365 points. Wow, that's incredibly specific. Is there like a reason for that number, or is that just a coincidence?
Well, you know, it's a question that's been like debated for centuries.
Makes sense.
Some people think that it reflects a deeper connection between like our bodies and the cycles of nature, you know?
Oh, interesting.
While others believe it's more like a symbolic representation of, you know, that intricate balance within us. But regardless, it just shows you how complex and sophisticated this ancient system really is.
That's really incredible. I mean, if there are that many points, does that mean that some are more important than others?
Yeah, I mean, each meridian has its own like unique role, you know, governing different functions and areas of the body.
Yeah.
Some are definitely more prominent, like the foot tying meridian.
Okay, the foot tying meridian.
It has a whopping 78 points.
78. That's a lot for one meridian.
It's the most of any meridian.
Wow.
So, you know, it starts at the eyebrows, travels down the back of the body, and extends all the way to your little toe.
Wow, so it covers a lot of ground.
It does, and it influences a whole bunch of functions, everything from headaches to circulation.
So, I mean, given its path and all those
Yes.
points, it sounds like it plays a pretty major role in overall health then.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and is that like a representative example, or are there others that are kind of like that?
Oh, yeah, there are others. The dew meridian, for instance, it runs along the spine, and it's considered like essential for vitality.
It's the spine and the brain. I mean, those are pretty crucial areas.
Oh, they are?
So what makes that particular meridian so important?
Well, in TCM, the dew meridian is thought to be like this central pathway for protective qi.
Protective key.
Yeah, it shields the body from like external influences.
Fascinating.
And it's also, you know, closely tied to spiritual energy.
So it's not just about physical health. It's like this deeper level of energetic and spiritual well-being, too.
Exactly.
That's incredible. And so we've got one that runs along the back. Are there any that run along the front?
Oh, yeah, you've got the Ren meridian, and it flows right along the front of the body, and it governs reproductive and emotional energy.
So it's kind of like the counterpart to the dew meridian then.
In a way, yeah, it's like flowing along the opposite side of the body.
So what are the implications of that, for someone who's trying to understand their health through the lens of TCM?
Well, it really speaks to this concept of balance,
Balance.
which is like fundamental in TCM.
Yeah.
These meridians, they're constantly interacting and influencing each other.
Okay.
And when they're in harmony, that's when we experience optimal health, you know?
So understanding these pathways and how they relate to each other could give you insight into like areas of imbalance in the body.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. Now, when we're talking about these meridian points,
Yeah.
are we talking about the same points that like acupuncturists target?
Yes, acupuncture often focuses on like stimulating these points, but their significance goes beyond just needles, you know?
Oh, there's more to these points than just being acupuncture targets. Okay, now I'm intrigued. What else should we know about them?
Well, in TCM, these points are seen as these like key access points.
Access points.
Yeah, to influence the flow of qi in the body.
Oh, interesting.
Acupuncture is one way to do this, but there are other techniques too, like acupressure, massage, and even certain exercises, they can stimulate these points and promote balance.
So it's not just about needles.
Not at all.
There are all these different approaches that use this knowledge.
Exactly.
This knowledge of the meridians, though, isn't it more than just the points? I mean, you mentioned earlier that the text describes qualities of ki
Right.
and how it flows through these pathways. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. The text talks about different qualities of chi as it flows through these pathways.
Okay.
And it often uses the concepts of yin and yang to describe this.
Yin and yang.
Yeah,
Those fundamental forces.
Right.
So how do those apply to these very specific meridians and points?
Well, yin and yang, they represent these opposing but also complementary forces that are constantly interacting.
Okay.
They influence each other.
Okay.
And in TCM, they're used to describe everything.
Everything.
From the seasons to the organs, to the functions of the body. For example, the Ren meridian we talked about earlier?
Yes.
That's considered a yin meridian.
Okay, so the Ren meridian, which flows along the front of the body.
Right.
So how does being a yin meridian influence its function?
Well, it's associated with qualities like receptivity, nourishment, and cooling.
Oh, interesting.
You can think of it as the energy that helps us receive and process experiences, both physically and emotionally.
Okay, so the Ren meridian is about taking in and nurturing.
Yeah.
Makes sense, given its association with reproductive and emotional energy. What would be an example of a yang meridian?
Oh, the Du meridian, running along the back, that's a great example.
Okay.
It's all about activity, protection, and warming.
Okay, interesting.
You can think of it as the energy that, helps us move through the world,
Okay.
set boundaries, and defend ourselves.
So it's interesting how those qualities seem to align with, the physical locations of those meridians. Right. The Ren meridian on the front is more inward focused.
Yeah.
While the Du meridian on the back is more outward focused.
Right.
Does the text say anything about, how imbalances in these yin and yang qualities might affect our health?
Oh, it does, yeah. For example, a yin imbalance in the Ren meridian.
Yeah.
It might manifest as emotional instability,
Okay.
difficulty conceiving, or even, coldness in the extremities.
Oh, wow.
And then a yang imbalance in the Du meridian, you might see that show up as back pain, stiffness, or feeling kind of overwhelmed.
Okay.
You can't cope with external demands,
It sounds like understanding these yin and yang qualities within the meridians could give you real insight into potential imbalances.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is really giving me a much deeper appreciation for how the ancient Chinese viewed the body.
Yeah.
And its connection to the natural world.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It makes you wonder how much wisdom we've lost touch with.
Yeah, it really does.
In our modern world.
It does.
It's pretty incredible. So we talked about how some meridians have more points than others.
Right.
But does the text say anything about, specific types of points? Are they all created equal?
Oh, no. It actually mentions these points along the meridians called origin points.
Origin points.
Where the chi in each pathway.
So these are like the headwaters of the rivers we were talking
Yeah,
about, where the ki first springs forth.
That's a great way to put it.
So if we kind of connect this back to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
what are the implications of stimulating these origin points versus other points?
It's like tuning a musical instrument.
I like that analogy.
By adjusting these key points, you can bring the entire system into harmony.
It really highlights the precision and artistry involved in TCM, right?
Absolutely.
But it makes me wonder, how were these points even discovered in the first place?
That's a question that takes us back thousands of years. The
Yeah.
origins of TCM are shrouded in myth and legend, But a lot of scholars believe that these points were discovered through a combination of observation, intuition, and probably a lot of experimentation over many generations.
So it wasn't just random guesswork.
Yeah.
There was real methodology behind it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What would that have looked like, though, that observation and experimentation?
Well, they would spend generations observing these subtle changes in the body.
Yeah, wow.
Noticing how different areas responded to touch, pressure, and even the cycles of nature.
That dedication to understanding the body's energetic system is pretty incredible when you think about it.
It really is, yeah.
It makes you appreciate how much we can still learn from these ancient traditions,
Absolutely.
We often think of modern medicine as being so advanced, but there's so much we can glean from these time-tested approaches.
I agree.
I completely agree. Okay, so we've covered meridians, points, origin points, yin and yang. We even touched on some practical applications. Is there anything else about, how Qi operates in the body that we should touch on?
Well, one thing that's really important to remember
Okay.
is that while this ancient text provides this detailed map of the body's energy, it doesn't really get into specific treatment methods.
So it's not like a DIY manual for
Mm.
acupuncture or herbal medicine.
Right.
What does it offer us then?
It gives us a framework for understanding how energy flows through the body.
Okay.
And by becoming aware of these pathways and points,
Yeah.
we can start to pay attention to how our own energy feels.
Oh, interesting.
How it ebbs and flows.
So instead of just focusing on symptoms,
Right.
this encourages us to develop a deeper level of self-awareness, right?
Exactly.
Tuning into those subtle sensations that we might normally miss.
Exactly.
For example, if you're feeling stressed, you might notice that you're holding tension in your shoulders.
Right.
And understanding the meridians, it allows you to connect those sensations to specific energy pathways and then explore ways to address them.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's where those other modalities you mentioned come in, like
Yeah.
acupressure or massage.
Exactly. Or even just being mindful of your posture,
Oh, interesting.
your breath, the foods you eat.
Yeah.
All of these can influence the flow of Qi.
So it's like having this new lens through which to view
Yeah.
your health and well-being.
I like that. Yeah.
But if someone wanted to use this ancient knowledge to, address specific health concerns,
Yeah.
would they just use this text as a guide?
Not exactly. While there are resources out there for self-care based on TCM principles, it's always best to consult with a qualified practitioner
Right.
for personalized guidance.
That makes sense. You wouldn't try to perform surgery on yourself after reading a medical textbook.
Exactly. TCM is complex and nuanced,
Yeah.
It takes years of study and practice to really master it.
Okay.
So if you're interested in exploring it further, finding a trained professional is essential.
That's great advice. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored meridians, points, origin points, yin and yang, and even touched on some practical applications.
It's been a good deep dive.
It has been. As we wrap up, is there a final takeaway you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important takeaway is this. This ancient text offers this profound vision of the human body as a vibrant, interconnected system of energy.
Beautiful.
It invites us to see ourselves not just as physical beings, but as energetic beings.
Yes.
Intricately woven into the fabric of the cosmos,
It's a beautiful way to think about it. It reminds me of what we talked about earlier, those 365 meridian points reflecting the days of the year.
Right.
It suggests this connection between our internal rhythms and the natural world.
Absolutely. And that connection is what gives our lives meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
By understanding the flow of Qi within us, we can tap into that deeper connection and experience greater harmony and well-being.
So well said.
It's not just about the absence of disease. It's about living in alignment with our true nature.
Beautifully said. I feel like this deep dive has given me a whole new perspective on my own health and well-being.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me on this fascinating journey into the world of TCM.
It's been my pleasure.
It has been eye-opening. I hope you, dear listener, come away from this deep dive with a newfound appreciation for this ancient wisdom.
I hope so too.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep cultivating that vibrant energy within you.
Absolutely. It's more like they're key access points to influence the flow of Qi in the body.
Access points.
Yeah, to influence that flow.
Okay, so acupuncture is one way to do that, but you're saying there are other techniques too.
Yeah, like acupressure,
Definitely.
massage, even some exercises can stimulate these points.
Oh, wow.
And help to promote energetic balance.
So it's not just about needles then.
Nope, not at all.
There are all these different approaches
Yeah.
that utilize this knowledge. But it's more than just the points though, right? We were talking earlier about how the text describes the qualities of Qi
Right.
and how it flows through these pathways. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure, yeah. The text describes different qualities of Qi as it moves through these pathways.
Okay.
And it often uses the concepts of yin and yang to describe this.
Ah, yin and yang, right?
Yeah.
Those fundamental forces in Chinese philosophy.
Exactly.
So how do those concepts apply to these very specific meridians and points that we're talking about?
Well, yin and yang, they represent these opposing yet complementary forces that are constantly interacting, influencing each other.
Okay.
And in TCM, they're used to describe everything.
Everything.
Yeah, from the seasons to the organs,
Wow.
even the functions of the body.
That's pretty amazing.
For example, the Ren meridian we talked about.
Yeah.
That's considered a yin meridian.
Okay, and the red meridian, just to remind folks, it flows along the front of the body. So how does being a yin meridian affect its function?
Well, it's associated with qualities like receptivity,
Receptivity.
nourishment, and cooling.
Oh, interesting.
Think of it as the energy that helps us receive and process experiences, both physically and emotionally.
Okay, so it's about taking in and nurturing.
Yeah,
That makes sense given its association with reproductive and emotional energy.
it does.
So for contrast, what would be an example of a yang meridian?
The du meridian,
Okay, the du meridian.
running along the back.
Okay.
That's a great example of a yang meridian.
And how do its qualities manifest in the body?
Well, it's about activity,
Activity.
protection, and warming.
Okay.
You can think of it as the energy that helps us to, like, move through the world,
Okay.
set boundaries, and defend ourselves.
It's interesting how those qualities seem to align with, like, the physical location of these meridians.
Yeah.
The red meridian being on the front, and it seems more inward focused.
Right.
And the du meridian on the back, more outward focused.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
Does the text say anything about how, like, imbalances in these yin and yang qualities might affect our health?
Oh, it does, yeah.
Mm.
For example, a yin imbalance in the ren meridian,
Uh-huh.
that could show up as emotional instability,
Okay.
difficulty conceiving,
Wow.
or even coldness in the extremities.
Okay, so pretty wide-ranging effects there.
Yeah, and then for the du meridian, a yang imbalance there.
Okay.
You might see things like back pain,
Okay.
stiffness, or feeling overwhelmed and unable to cope.
Wow, so like unable to kind of meet the demands of the outside world.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like understanding these qualities within the meridians could really give someone insight into potential imbalances in the body.
Oh, for sure.
It really deepens my appreciation for how the ancient Chinese viewed the body
Yeah, it's amazing.
and its connection to nature.
It really is.
I mean, it makes you wonder how much wisdom we've lost touch with
It
in
does.
our modern world.
It really makes you think.
It does. So we talked about some meridians having more points than others.
Right.
But does the text mention any specific types of points?
It does.
Okay.
It mentions points along the meridians called origin points.
Origin points.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are essentially where the chi for each pathway originates.
Oh, so they're like the headwaters
Exact.
of the rivers we were picturing earlier.
Exactly.
So thinking about the bigger picture then,
Yeah.
what are the implications of stimulating these origin points as opposed to other points?
Well, think of it like tuning a musical instrument.
Oh, I like that.
By adjusting those key points,
Huh?
you can bring the entire system into greater harmony.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Thanks.
It really highlights the precision and the artistry involved in TCM.
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
It makes me wonder how those points were even discovered in the first place.
Well, that takes us back thousands of years.
Yeah.
The origins of TCM, they're shrouded in myth and legend, but many scholars believe that these points were discovered through careful observation,
Okay.
intuition, and probably a lot of experimentation over many generations.
So it wasn't just random guesswork.
No, not at all.
There was a real methodology to it.
Definitely.
I mean, I can't even imagine what that would have looked like, the observation and experimentation.
Well, they would have spent generations observing the subtle changes in the body, noticing how different areas responded to touch, pressure, even the cycles of nature.
That's a level of dedication that's pretty hard to fathom.
It really is.
It makes you appreciate how much we can still learn from these ancient traditions.
I agree.
We think of modern medicine as being so advanced,
Uh-huh.
but there's so much wisdom in these time-tested approaches.
Absolutely.
I completely agree. Okay, so we've covered a lot. Meridians, points, origin points, yin and yang.
We have.
We even touched on some practical applications.
Yeah, we did.
Is there anything else about how Qi operates in the body that we should know?
Well, one thing that's really important to remember
Okay.
is that this text, while it gives us this detailed map,
Yeah.
it doesn't really delve into specific treatment methods.
Okay, so it's not a DIY manual
No.
for acupuncture or herbal medicine or anything.
Right, right.
So what does it offer us then?
It offers us a framework for understanding how energy flows through the body.
A framework. Okay.
And by becoming aware of these pathways and points,
Uh-huh.
we can start to pay attention to how our own energy feels, how it ebbs and flows.
So instead of just focusing on symptoms, it's about cultivating this deeper level of self-awareness,
Exactly.
tuning into these subtle sensations we might normally miss.
Yeah, I like that.
For example, if you're feeling stressed,
Uh-huh.
you might notice tension in your shoulders.
Right.
And understanding the meridians allows you to connect those sensations to specific pathways
Right. Yeah.
and then explore ways to address them.
Exactly.
And that's where things like acupressure and massage come in.
Exactly. Or even being mindful of your posture,
Okay.
your breath, the foods you eat.
Interesting.
All of these can influence the flow of qi.
So it's like having this new lens to view your health and well-being.
I like that analogy.
But if someone wanted to actually use this ancient knowledge to address specific health concerns,
Yeah.
would they just use this text as a guide?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
While there are resources for self-care based on TCM principles, it's always best to consult with a qualified practitioner
That makes sense.
for personalized guidance.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to try to perform surgery on yourself after reading a medical textbook.
Exactly. TCM is complex and nuanced. It takes years of study and practice to master it.
Right, of course.
So if you're interested in exploring it further, finding a trained professional is essential.
That's great advice.
Right. It's not a how-to manual.
Right, so what does it offer then?
Well, it offers a framework, I think, for understanding how energy flows through the body.
Okay, a framework.
Yeah. And I think by becoming aware of these pathways and these points,
Yeah.
we can start to pay attention to how our own energy feels, how
Yeah.
it ebbs and flows throughout the day.
So it's less about focusing on symptoms and more about cultivating this deeper self-awareness,
Exactly.
tuning into subtle sensations we might otherwise miss.
Absolutely.
Like, for example, if you're feeling stressed,
Yeah.
you might notice tension in your shoulders.
Yeah.
But understanding these meridians helps you connect those physical sensations to specific pathways, right?
It does. Yes.
And then you can start to think about how to address them.
Exactly.
And that's where, acupressure, massage, those kinds of things come in.
Exactly. Or even just being mindful of your posture,
Oh, interesting.
your breath, the foods you eat.
Right.
All of these things can influence the flow of tea.
So it's like having this whole new lens through which to understand your health and well-being.
I like that. Yeah.
But if someone wanted to use this knowledge to address specific concerns,
Yeah.
would they just use this text as their guide?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
While there are some resources out there for self-care based on TCM,
Right.
it's always best to consult with a qualified practitioner
Right. That makes sense.
for personalized guidance.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to try and perform surgery on yourself after reading a medical textbook. Right.
Exactly. And TCM is complex.
Yeah.
It's nuanced.
Of course.
It takes years of study to master.
Right.
So finding a trained professional, if you're interested in exploring this further, is really essential.
That's great advice. Okay, well, we've covered so much ground today.
We have.
Talking about meridians, points, origin points, yin and yang.
It's been quite a journey
It has.
through the body's energy.
It really has. As we wrap up this deep dive, is there a final takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important takeaway is that this ancient text offers us a really profound vision of the body
Okay.
as this vibrant, interconnected system of energy.
It's a beautiful way to think about it.
And it invites us to see ourselves not just as physical beings,
Right?
but as energetic beings,
Yeah.
woven into the fabric of the cosmos.
That's beautiful. It reminds me of what we talked about with the 365 meridian points,
Right.
reflecting the days of the year.
Yeah,
It really highlights that connection between our internal rhythms and the natural world.
absolutely. And I think that connection is what gives our lives meaning and purpose.
That's so well said.
And by understanding the flow of qi within us,
Yeah.
we can tap into that deeper connection
Right.
and experience greater harmony and well-being.
It's not just about the absence of disease.
Exactly.
It's about living in alignment with our true nature.
Absolutely.
So beautifully said. I feel like this deep dive has given me a whole new perspective on my own health and well-being.
That's great to hear.
I'm so glad we had this conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the world of TCM.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
It's been truly eye-opening, and I hope you, dear listener, come away with a newfound appreciation for this ancient wisdom as well.
Me too.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep cultivating that vibrant energy within you with